Yo, what's your boy Ghost here, and today I'm bringing you guys another comparison video between the Krig-6 and STG. Now this one of those little interesting comparison videos that I wanted to make before Season 2, which actually I think in my next video that's going to be Season 2 content. This might be the last throwback comparison I do for a minute, hopefully for a while, because, you know, I don't want to make these given the fact that the current game is just like, I don't know, like not relevant, because people right now we just don't care. We just want to get to the new season. As a matter of fact, actually, I want to get to Warzone 2, because I don't know if you guys heard, but Warzone 2, bro, there's gonna be so many good things. But I just want to get there. I know it's kind of crazy to think about because the new game just came out, but bro, like we need to get there ASAP. But anyways, man, I want to do this comparison because I see a lot of similarities in the STG with the Krig-6, like how I did with the C58. And you know, that's why we're here. But before we do get into the comparison, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, one road to 2,000. And yeah, man, with that being said, let's just get into this comparison. And here we have the recoil pattern for the Krig. Now this actually has a lot more recoil than I remember. I do not remember when they ended up nerfing this weapon to give it this much recoil, because you guys remember, bro, this Krig was literally just unmoved. Like, it didn't move for a long time. Like when it became meta, it didn't move. The recoil pattern was way different than that. So when I saw that, I was actually kind of confused, because I was like, yo, hold on, when did it have this much recoil? But you know, updates happened. So many updates that happened. They actually, I think in Cold War, they had this like obsession with nerfing recoil. I think they kind of stopped now. I think now they just don't nerf things. They say they nerf things, but they don't. Like the brand's still really good. And P40, they trolled with that update. Well, actually, I give them kind of credit, because after I read some of the reports yesterday on like them admitting that they messed up the game, I've grown more respect for them. I know it's kind of weird, but like I kind of understand it now, bro. Like, I don't know, Warzone wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to go this far, and so when it went this far, they weren't prepared, and they just messed the game up, which is, you know, understand. That's why they're making Warzone 2. I sympathize with the developers, I really do, bro. But you know, regardless of that, they did make a lot of mistakes making these buffs and nerfs, because in Cold War, bro, the thing that always happened when guns had no recoil, their way of nerfing was always recoil added, right? And the recoil was never like, it was always the same, bro. Farah did it for the Farah, they did it for the Krig, the C58, like the list goes on and on. Like every time there was a good weapon in Cold War, they would nerf the recoil, right? And the recoil was never touched, and then they never touched the things that actually mattered, like the damage. And in this case, the Krig didn't ever really get touched damage wise. I think they might have done a few damage nerfs, maybe one or two. But the nerf on the recoil, like, I guarantee you now, you see the recoil around the Krig, say it probably took them like 3-4 nerfs before they actually made the Krig look like this. But even so, man, the Krig's still really good. If you can control your recoil, it'll still be really good. And it's not really that hard to control recoil. You put the field agent grip or you put the bruiser grip in, it's really not that hard. I didn't really struggle with it. When I first went back to the Krig-6, it kind of took me a little bit, but once I started getting used to it again, I was like, yo, this is not hard. Like, I mean, this is really how it is for most of these guns in Warzone. Like, I really can't think of a gun that really takes a lot of skill to, I guess, control recoil wise. This game isn't sophisticated like some other games with recoil patterns, so I'm not really like, I don't know. Like, it really doesn't matter if a gun ever really truly gets recoil. Like, if there's a gun that really has a lot of recoil, where it's at the point where it's just not going to be controllable, and if it's controllable, bro, you might be doing the thing. But again, man, like I said, Warzone guns to me don't take that much skill. The only thing that I could give somewhat of an exception to would be maybe the AMAX, but even then, that gun just had too much damage. But anyways, man, that being said, let's get into the STG and some stats. And here we have the recoil pattern for the STG. And I'm not gonna lie, bro, I just looked at the stats between both of these two guns, man, and I gotta say, bro, they are very similar. Like, they are way more similar than I thought. See, when I made the C58 STG comparison, I felt like when I saw the stats, I felt like it was more of a stretch than I thought. But this comparison right here, bro, this is the one, bro. This is the one. Very similar in almost everything. And when you guys hear this, bro, you're gonna be just as surprised on how similar these two weapons really are. But anyways, man, we're gonna start off with the fire rate. You know, the good old fire rate. Every video comparison video started off by that. But for the STG, we have a 600 RPM, and then for the Krig, we have a 652 RPM. Very close. And the good thing about this is that the Vanguard weapons, and in this case the STG, you can actually up the fire rate or even bullet velocity with a lot of attachments. If you were to have all those attachments filled out when you make your STG constant, you'll probably have a fire rate close to, if not surpassing by just a little, the 652 fire rate that the Krig has. But I feel like if you were to use all fire rate attachments, you'll end up messing your gun up in some sort of fashion, like recoil wise, range wise, and I don't know, man. Sometimes I think at most you can maybe do the magazine, or maybe like a what's it called, a barrel, or even the ammo type, because I use hollow point, which gives me more limb damage. But I'm starting to think like why I'm not using bullet velocity. Lengthen. I don't know why I'm not using that one. But if you were to use that, you would definitely get more, like, you know what I'm saying, more movement on the bullets. So I don't know, man. Fire rate wise, it's kind of hard to really tell like who wins this specific matchup. I'm gonna say this is gonna be like a draw. Like not one or the other has the advantage, because you know, if you do put on some fire rate attachment with the SCG, you could get close to that fire rate. Now, if you don't, like me, you know, the advantage is for the Krig, but most people do like running fire rate attachments, and so we're just going to say that's a draw. Not one has an advantage in this scenario. So moving on over to the damage. For the STG for 0 to 31 meters, we have 45 damage to the head and neck, 33 to the chest, 30 to the stomach, and then 30 to the extremities. And then for the Krig, 0 to 34 meters, we have 43 damage to the head, 31 to the neck and chest, 29 to the stomach, 29 to the extremities. Now, as you guys can see, bro, the SCG actually has more damage than the Krig. Now, I did not see this coming. I didn't think the SCG had more damage than the Krig. I thought the Krig was a little bit more powerful than what I'm seeing here in these stats. But the fact that the SCG, like, actually has damage kind of, like, makes me realize that these Vanguard guns can somewhat compete with the OG weapons. Now, granted, I still think that most of these, like, Cold War, Modern Warfare weapons clear Vanguard weapons by a mile. It definitely has some potential to compete, even with, you know, their current state. Like, they're not terrible, but I still think that Vanguard weapons as a whole, or ARs, need a little bit more rework. I can't really put my finger on it, but if the fix ever happens, we'll know when we actually experience it. But anyways, man, moving on over to the longer ranges. For 31 meters and above, for the STG, we have 39 damage to the head and neck, 28 to the chest, 26 to the stomach, and then 27 to the extremities. And then for the STG, 34 to 56 meters, we have 37 to the head, 27 to the neck and chest, 25 to the stomach, and 25 to the extremities. So, as you guys heard, the Krig stops at 56 meters in that scenario, because there's actually another range, or damage, or there's more ranges of damages after 56 meters, which is crazy, because this scenario, that means like the Krig just has more range than the SCG, and in general, that's not really like a big thing, because for me personally, I think most guns that aren't Vanguard ARs have more range than actual Vanguard ARs, and that's probably like the one thing that the Vanguard ARs needs a little bit of work with, because if they end up fixing that, man, it's just gonna be, they're gonna be really good, be able to compete with these old ARs, and that's how Cold War weapons were once at the same, like before Season 3. I don't know what you guys if remember, but when the integration for Cold War happened, a lot of the guns, or specifically ARs, just weren't that good. They weren't better than a Kilo. They weren't better than an AMAX, and so for a while, we weren't really able to use the weapons until they dropped Season 3, where they finally buffed the weapons, and we were able to finally use those ARs. I think that's what's going to happen here before Warzone 2, because that's one thing that, again, they weren't expecting, but you know, they ended up messing up on, understandably. But lastly, man, for 56 meters and above for the Krig, we have 34 damage to the head, 25 to the neck and chest, 23 to the stomach, and 23 to the extremities. The STG, though, no matter what, has a little bit more damage than the Krig. I guess the only thing that we would have to say is that the fire rate is just slightly slower, but then again, that's not really a valid argument, because you can always up the fire rate for an STG. So in this scenario, bro, it's almost like both of these weapons are like the same. Like the STG is essentially the same version of the Krig-6 or the Vanguard version of the Krig-6. And I mean, listen, they got everything going for them. They got the no recoil or low recoil. They have the same, almost essentially the same damage, almost essentially the same fire rate, and just over this, essentially the same characteristics. And to be honest, bro, I'd say the only thing that's kind of separating them is just the damage or the range aspect, which the Krig does have an advantage in. But hopefully the STG does get fixed a little bit before we move on to Warzone 2, so we can have a fair matchup. A fair, or not even a fair matchup, an equal matchup, because damn near, bro, this is probably the closest comparison I've ever made. Like, I can't really think of another comparison where I'm like, yeah, both of these weapons are damn near the same. But in this case, man, I actually can't even pick one over the other, but both of the guns are damn near the same. I love both of the weapons. And I don't know, man, at this point, it's just going to be personal preference. And a lot of people probably going to pick the STG just because it's new, understandably so. But for me, man, I'm just going to rock with both of them. I don't really care. I'm just trying to have fun. But yeah, man, with that being said, though, thank you guys so much, and see you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.